They were pinned down, trapped in a jungle that had turned against them. The air cracked with gunfire and smoke drifted through the trees like a warning. 2 men were already bleeding out their screams, cutting through the chaos. Their extraction point had been compromised, and every radio call came back as static. Captain James Weiss, the man everyone trusted to lead, stood motionless in the center of it all. His lips moved, but no words came. His eyes were empty. The team looked to him, waiting for orders, but there was nothing. Behind him, Captain Eva Monroe moved. Until now, she'd been background noise. The woman no one listened to, the one they joked about in whispers. But as bullets ripped through the leaves, she stepped forward with purpose. She didn't yell or hesitate. Her voice was calm, sharp, cutting through the panic like a blade. Move the wounded behind that ridge. Drake, take 2 men and secure the west flank. Chen, get the hostages into cover and set up a perimeter to the south. The men froze, torn between habit and survival. She wasn't in command, but their actual leader was gone, hollowed out by fear. Sergeant Chen glanced at her, then at the enemy fire growing louder. He made a choice. You heard her? Move. That broke the tension. Suddenly, soldiers scrambled into motion, following her directions like they'd been waiting for someone to take charge. Eva dropped beside a wounded man, pressed a hand to his shoulder to keep him grounded, and then turned her focus to the sky. They had minutes, maybe less, to change everything. Before all this, Captain Eva Monroe had always been the quiet one in the room. She didn't demand attention. She earned it in silence. At 34, she carried herself like someone who had nothing to prove and everything to protect. Her uniform was always crisp, her gear methodically organized. In the locker room, while others laughed and bragged, Eva worked. No one ever asked about the medals she kept tucked away in a drawer. She never displayed them. That wasn't her style. She wasn't part of their brotherhood. She didn't slap backs or trade war stories over coffee. She came in early, stayed late, and knew the terrain better than anyone. Once, someone had asked why she never joined in. She had smiled faintly and said, "I don't have time to relive what I haven't forgotten." That was Eva. The photo in her locker said more than words. A worn image of her last unit. 5 faces, now gone, taped inside the door. Beneath it, a folded note in a child's handwriting. It read, "Come back safe. Love, Micah." Few people knew she was a mom. Fewer asked. She didn't bring it up. This job wasn't about her personal life. It was about doing things right, preparing for what others missed. That was how she survived. In every mission, Eva played the role assigned to her second-in-command, logistics support, sometimes a silent observer. She didn't mind. What mattered was the mission. She'd served in South America, the Middle East, and East Asia. She never lost a civilian. Not once. But her name rarely made the reports. Her success was invisible. She let it be. Sometimes that silence was mistaken for weakness. But those who watched closely, really watched, knew better. Her posture never wavered. Her gaze was steady. When she spoke, it was deliberate, measured. She never tried to outshine anyone. But she never backed down either. What people didn't understand was that Eva didn't want recognition. She wanted results. And when the time came when things fell apart, she wouldn't flinch. She'd already lived through worse. She didn't carry her strength on the outside. It was rooted deep, quiet, and immovable, like stone. The briefing room was cold, not in temperature, but in tone. The kind of place where hierarchy was written in silence and the sound of boots on tile. Maps of dense jungle covered the walls, and a red laser dot hovered over one pinned image. Colonel Graves pointed to the compound. 8 hostages inside. 3 hours to get them out. That was the mission. Everyone listened as he spoke, but all eyes were on Captain James Weiss. He had the look. Sharp jawline, gleaming badges, the easy swagger of someone who had already been the hero in too many stories. His nods drew nods. His silence felt strategic. When Graves said Weiss would lead the op, the approval in the room was instant. The circle had chosen its champion. Eva Monroe sat slightly behind them. She leaned in, studying the satellite images harder than anyone. She saw something off. She raised her hand. It was quiet for a second, just long enough for glances to pass between the men. "Here we go. Sir, I served in this region. Those rivers this time of year, they flood. These access routes won't be usable. We may need alternate vectors." Her voice was calm, professional. But Graves didn't even lift his eyes from the file. "Noted, Captain." Moving on. And just like that, she was sidelined. A soft laugh came from behind her. Diversity hire added again. The words weren't whispered. They didn't have to be. They were said just loud enough to humiliate, without consequence. Eva didn't turn. She didn't flinch. But her jaw locked slightly. Her eyes returned to the map. As the rest of the briefing continued, she stayed quiet. Weiss laid out the plan with confidence, assigning roles, routes, backup procedures. His words sounded polished. She saw the cracks, untested assumptions, terrain mismatches, but said nothing more. This wasn't her show. Not yet. When it was over, officers gathered in clumps, exchanging theories, jokes, and confident predictions. No one approached Eva. She packed her notes in silence, methodical as always. As she exited the room, someone brushed past her shoulder and muttered, "Just stick close to the real soldiers." The others laughed. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She had heard it all before. The locker room smelled of oil metal and overconfidence. Gear clattered as men laughed, slapping each other on the back while trading stories from past deployments. Some were talking about a bar in Germany. Others joked about jungle bugs the size of fists. It was easy, casual, familiar. None of it included Eva. Her space was different, tidy, sparse. Her locker was perfectly organized, like every item had been measured before being placed. Inside, no flashy decals, no photos of victory moments or inside jokes. Just that small picture of her son and a strip of handwritten numbers folded into a map pocket. A private rhythm untouched by the noise around her. She checked her gear quietly, going through each pocket strap and clip. Not once, but twice. She tested her comms pack and checked a backup transmitter. It was older tech, lighter than standard issue and able to switch frequencies in ways most didn't bother learning. She tucked it into her pack. Just in case. Expecting your radio to fail. Monroe Weiss stood nearby, voice light but condescending. "Just being thorough, sir." She answered, eyes still on her equipment. He grinned like he was humoring a rookie. "Save the wait. My team doesn't need backups." She didn't reply. She had learned long ago that silence lasted longer than sarcasm. As he walked away, a few others chuckled. One murmured something about overkill. Another said she probably Googled how to use the gear. She kept working, each movement more precise than the last. A few lockers away, someone had left their weapon, leaning haphazardly against a bench. A scope cover hung by a thread. She glanced at it, then looked away. This wasn't her moment. Not yet. Every time she moved, it was like she was rewriting something invisible. Rewriting doubt. Rewriting that joke from training. Rewriting the way someone said her name like it was an afterthought. She didn't prepare because she feared failure. She prepared because no one else would account for her success. She was rounding the corner near the armory when she heard them. Two voices, low but clear. They didn't know she was there. Didn't care. Why's Monroe even on this op? That was Major Hanley. Orders from upstairs, replied someone she recognized as Captain Durbin. Gotta have at least one woman on these headline missions. Token box checked. There was a pause, the kind filled with silent agreement. Don't worry, Weiss knows the drill. Keep her with the hostages. Keep her quiet. Keep her out of the way. Eva stopped walking. Just for a second. No one saw her expression. No one knew that behind the stack of crates, her fingers clenched the strap of her pack just a little tighter. She didn't breathe. She didn't speak. Then she moved on her boots, hitting the floor with steady rhythm. Back in the prep bay, she zipped her pack closed with a controlled snap. Checked the battery on her backup device one last time. Everything was ready. There was nothing else to adjust, nothing else to polish. Only the mission ahead. No one would remember those words. Not the way she would. But she wouldn't carry them like weight. She'd carry them like fuel. The jungle was thick and wet. Every breath felt like it had to push through soup. The team dropped in under gray skies and shifting winds. Rain hadn't started yet, but the clouds made promises. Eva brought up the rear eyes, always scanning. She didn't mind the position. It gave her a wider view. Captain Weiss led the way, confident, head high. The path was narrow and choked with roots. Every few steps they'd stop to check gear or adjust formation. When they hit a fork in the trail, Eva knelt down. Something wasn't right. The tracks were too fresh. Sharp outlines not worn. Recent. "Sir," she said into the radio, "hostile movement nearby. Parallel to our path. Multiple individuals. Fresh signs." Weiss glanced back. "Those are days old, Monroe. Stick to the plan. Maintain calm protocol." She held her tongue. She knew what she saw, but she also knew what would happen if she pushed. So she fell back in line and scanned even harder. Birds ahead fell silent. That was the first real alarm. Then broken twigs sharp at the edges. The forest had been disturbed fast, recent. Still the team pressed forward. 2 hours in, they reached a clearing. Drake checked his GPS. 2 clicks from target. "We hold here," said Weiss. 5-minute check. Then final approach. Eva moved to the edge of the clearing. The silence was too complete. Even insects had stopped. Her eyes caught a sliver of metal, wire, barely visible, running near Chen's foot. "Don't move," she whispered. Chen froze. Tripwire. She tracked it back. Crude explosive buried beneath leaves. She signaled to Weiss. He came this time, more cautious. Called over demolition. The device was disarmed. "Good catch," he muttered. But his tone didn't soften much. He still believed in the plan. Still believed they were in control. Then the world split open. Shots came from all sides. Crackling bursts, wild angles. 2 men went down screaming. Radio turned to static. Weiss shouted into nothing. People scrambled. Trees exploded in splinters. The jungle swallowed their strategy whole. Weiss froze, mouth open, eyes gone, vacant. Orders, someone yelled. No answer, only silence where command should be, and in that silence Eva began to move. She didn't wait. Chaos left no time for consensus. While others panicked, Eva Monroe calculated. Her eyes scanned the map in her mind. Her hand moved to her radio. The standard comms were dead, just noise. But her backup device was already in her vest. She pulled it free. Tango 3, Delta, Authentication, Sierra, November, 972. Her voice was steady, clipped. No trace of fear, no waste. The others crouched behind whatever cover they could find. Weiss was still frozen, breathing too fast, blinking like he was waking from a bad dream. But he said nothing. He gave no signal. It was like he had disappeared without leaving. "Comms are jammed," someone called. "They're blocking us." Eva didn't reply. She was too busy bypassing. Her fingers entered the alternate codes, the frequencies others didn't bother memorizing. Diplomatic channels. Obscure and outdated, but functional. The radio cracked. Once, then came alive. Echo base standing by for coordinates. Her breath caught for a fraction of a second. Then she rattled off grid numbers pointing toward a clearing they had passed earlier. Safe distance reachable within an hour. Barely. Copy coordinates. Extraction ETA 90 minutes. She turned. Drake stared at her. "How the hell did you get through different frequency?" She didn't slow down. She was already moving. "Chen, regroup west. Get the hostages under tree cover. Rodriguez perimeter sweep. Drake, take the ridge. You've got overwatch." And then the voice no one expected. Weiss, barely audible. "I'm operational." He was sitting upright now, ashen, sweat-soaked, but present. She looked him over fast, but fair. "With all due respect, sir, the team is already following me." "And they're responding." He gave the faintest nod. "Then you lead. I'll back you." She didn't acknowledge that moment with pride. She didn't smile. There was too much to do. She was already turning toward the compound. Time was bleeding fast. Eva split the group. She took point with 2 soldiers. The first dash was across open jungle, uneven ground, scattered rocks. They had to cross it in waves, staggered by cover. Her squad moved first. Drake's voice came through, confirming flanks were holding. Chen had the hostages. She moved low and fast. The air erupted again. Bullets smacked the dirt. A young soldier beside her screamed, clutching his shoulder. Eva spun, grabbed him, half lifted, half pulled. "Keep moving. We've got you." Her team reached the tree line. She dragged the wounded man behind a log, held pressure to his wound, then stood. "Suppressive fire now," she ordered. "Cover for Chen." The civilians ran in a loose line, eyes wide, half ducked. One stumbled. Eva moved again, this time blocking with her body. Shots cracked past her cheek. She didn't flinch. Drake's team came next. Slower. They were carrying another wounded. Halfway through, someone screamed. A grenade landed. Drake's eyes widened. Eva didn't think. She sprinted, grabbed the grenade, threw it back. It exploded midair. Dirt flew. Then she turned and yelled, "Move!" They all made it. All alive. She was last over the line. She collapsed behind a fallen tree, breathing hard. Weiss joined her, eyes wide. "That was insane. You could have died." "We all could," she said. "Now stay sharp." She checked the clock. 50 minutes. Next stop, 2 kilometers of uneven terrain and no room for mistakes. The final stretch was brutal. The terrain climbed steep, then dropped suddenly into a ravine slick with moss and rainwater. The team moved fast, but the wounded slowed them. Eva stayed at the center, directing each shift in formation, her mind running 2 steps ahead. Then came the warning. Fire from the right flank. Trees shattered. The extraction point was just beyond, but now it was blocked. Weiss scanned the hillside, his breath tight. "Options diversion," she said. "Small team, loud distraction, draw them off. You lead the main group." He paused. "That's suicide." "No," she said. "It's math." Rodriguez and Chen were already at her side. No hesitation, no words, just readiness. Weiss reached for her arm. "We move the moment you draw fire. If you don't make it, we will," she said. "Start prepping the hostages." They moved quickly, flanking east. Eva signaled silently. 3 grenades out, staggered. On her mark, they exploded with calculated rhythm, echoing like a larger force. The enemy shifted. Gunfire turned toward the ghosts in the trees. Now Weiss ordered, "Go." The others sprinted. Eva and her team held just long enough, then melted into the foliage. 10 minutes later, she could see the clearing. Helicopters. Dust kicking up in swirling circles. The team was boarding. Weiss paced the perimeter, eyes scanning. There, Rodriguez pointed. They broke through the tree line, running full speed. Gunfire erupted again from behind. A sniper round clipped Rodriguez in the leg. He stumbled. Eva turned back, didn't even think. She hoisted him onto her back and ran. Bullets hit the dirt beside her feet. Leaves exploded in clouds. Weiss shouted for cover fire. She crossed the last 20 meters through a curtain of chaos. Rodriguez was lifted off her shoulders into the chopper. Then she turned, scanned again. All accounted for. Only then did she climb aboard. Inside, no one spoke. Not right away. The sound of the rotors filled the silence. Then slowly, a man, one of the hostages, reached over, gripped her hand. "You saved us." Weiss made his way toward her. He looked like a man still catching up to the truth. "I owe you more than an apology," he said. "This is all because of you." She didn't reply. She just looked out the open door where jungle turned to sky. 3 days later, the base was quieter. The buzz of medics treating the wounded still hummed through the corridors, but the panic was gone. In a side room, Eva sat at a desk with a pen in her hand and dirt still caked beneath her nails. Her report was brief, just the facts, no flourishes. She listed the team's positions, the timeline, the enemy movements. No mention of fear, No mention of the moment Weiss froze. No word about throwing a live grenade. Just numbers and outcomes. Colonel Graves entered quietly. He'd read the witness statements. He didn't speak for a long time, just read over her shoulder. When she finished, he set the file down. "This report doesn't match what I'm hearing." "It contains the relevant tactical information," she replied. "That's not what I mean," Graves said. "Every person who came back from that mission said the same thing. You're the reason they're alive." Eva didn't look away. "I was doing my job." "No," he said. "You did more than that." He handed her a folder. "Captain Weiss has requested transfer. He named you as his replacement. Said there was no one better." She blinked once. That was all. "You've earned it," Graves said. 48 hours off. Then report for your first command briefing." When she left the room, she carried the folder under her arm, not even looking at it. It wasn't the paper that mattered. It was what came next. 6 months later, the same briefing room had changed. The air was different. The seats still creaked, the lights still flickered, but now she stood at the head of the table. A mix of men and women sat around her. Some had specifically requested to transfer to her unit. "Intelligence reports 23 hostages held in this building," she said, pointing to the screen. "Satellite shows possible traps here and here. Drake will lead comms. Chen's squad handles recon. Triple redundancy on all systems." When she finished, the room dispersed fast, everyone moving with clear purpose. No second guessing, no delay. Colonel Graves entered with visiting officers. He nodded to her. "Gentlemen, this is Captain Monroe, one of our best. No qualifiers, no footnotes. Just the truth." In the hallway afterward, a young lieutenant caught up to her. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" Eva nodded. "How did you deal with being seen as a token? Didn't it make you angry?" Eva paused. The memory flashed quiet lockers, ignored warnings, the weight of being underestimated. So many words she could have said, so many stories she could tell. But none of that mattered now. "I never saw myself that way," she said. "I only saw what I could contribute." Eventually, they saw it too. The young officer nodded and walked on thoughtful. Eva passed a wall of framed photographs, unit commanders dating back decades. Her image had been added near the end. First woman on that wall, not the last. She didn't stop to look. That picture wasn't where respect lived. It lived in the men and women who followed her into fire and came back. Because they trusted her. Because she earned it. Because she led.